morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy, sweltering world we're living in. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm in mainland Spain. It's boiling here. It's 31 degrees. It's only 11:30 in the morning. Having said that, that is a tiny little bit cooler than it was yesterday, but last night was awful. Yesterday, it was awful. I mean, really, really bad. I feel, people are suffering in this weather, and animals probably are suffering, and it really is not very nice. But anyway, it can't last forever, can it? Not as bad as this anyway. I mean, obviously, it's always hot in the summer. July's normally the worst month, I think, in Spain. But of course, the end of June was pretty hot. So anyway, we just battle through it. There's worse things. Just have to learn to not do much, drink lots of fluids, take lots of cold showers, all those things. Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about, we're waiting for this, aren't we? We're all waiting avidly for the golden buzzer, because it's come to that point in the trial of Erin Patterson where the jury are deliberating. And today, in Australia, it was sort of like, as far as Spain was concerned, it was last night. But Wednesday was the second day of full deliberations. So the jury started deliberating on Monday, but there was only a couple of hours before they finished. So they're deliberating between 10:30 in the morning and I think it's about 4:30 in the afternoon. And then after that, they're packed off to their hotel. The jury are packed off to their hotel where they're staying. They're not allowed to talk about it. There's jury keepers to make sure that they stick to what they're supposed to be doing, which basically, when they're in the hotel for the evening, they're not allowed to talk about the trial. They're only allowed to talk about the trial actually in deliberations. And when they finally come to a decision, a buzzer will sound. Gosh, we're all waiting for it, aren't we? And the press are there, and the like Ian Wilkinson and Simon Patterson and all the family and friends that are concerned in this case. And Erin, I suppose, is she in the court every day? I'm not sure if she's going to the court every day or whether she'll be brought in when her verdict is reached. But the way we'll know when a verdict is reached, and spoiler alert, it hasn't been reached this second day. It has not been. We're on verdict watch, but we haven't had the verdict yet. As soon as the day comes that we get the verdict, I will be going live. I've got a feeling about tomorrow, Thursday, certainly before the weekend, I think we might get a verdict. This buzzer will sound, not this particular buzzer, but a buzzer will sound. We'll call everyone back into the courtroom, and then we will get to know what the verdict is. Is Erin Patterson, well, really, it's not, is she guilty or not? It's, will she be found guilty or not? Because, of course, she may be guilty and get found not guilty, or she may be not guilty and get found guilty. So the question is, what are the jury going to find? Okay, so another day has passed. And if we have a look at the Daily Mail told us, no verdict in mushroom murder trial today. Jurors in the Erin Patterson murder trial have concluded their deliberations for today, and they will resume deliberations at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. That's it. That's all that was on their live blog. So as far as the jury's verdict is concerned, I haven't got that news for you. So I thought what we would do, I'm going to look at the victims. We're going to have a little look at Heather and Gail and Don and Ian. We're going to have a look at some of the news articles. And then somebody sent me some articles about Erin. Unfortunately, 3 of them, I can't get onto them because they're behind a paywall, but there's one that I can get onto that we'll have a look at. Thank you so much for that. And they know who they are. They may come into chat, and it's up to them to say who they are if they want to. I won't reveal. I don't never reveal my sources unless they want to be revealed, of course. So yeah, we've definitely got at least one more day. So tomorrow, yeah, Thursday, I've got a feeling but I could be completely wrong. But of course, as the weekend approaches, they're not really going to want to be there for the weekend. And these sort of psychological things do come into play. But of course, they'll want to make the right decision. They've got a big, huge responsibility, not just the responsibility for the victims, but they're holding Erin's life in their hands, just as she held her victims' lives in her hands. So these jurors, if Erin is found guilty, it's a big thing. She's probably going to serve the rest of her life in prison. If they find her not guilty, has she escaped from this terrible crime? So, these jurors, they've got a big job in front of them, a big responsibility, whichever way you look at it. And they will want to do it right. So they'll take as long as they have to take. And so they should, because there's so much to consider as well. All those 50 witnesses that the prosecution called. The days of judges' instructions that Justice Beale gave out. It's about a 2-month trial. So they're not going to just digest everything, come to a quick conclusion, even if they may already be, convinced of what they think. They'll want to go over things. So yesterday, they did not call any questions. So they did not, they're allowed the judges there in the courtroom or nearby, and they are allowed to send out any questions they might have. No questions have been sent out. So it's just the deliberations. Maybe there's one person who thinks differently to the rest of them. Maybe it's 6 think one way and 6 think another way. We don't know what's happening, and we will never get to know, or we shouldn't get to know really, because it's supposed to be secret, isn't it? So I'm just going to say my thank yous and my hellos, and then we're going to look at some interesting things about the victims, some other things that I think you'll find interesting. But if all you were here for was to, is the verdict come? No, it hasn't. So I'll just let you know that. Okay, so thank you, of course. Thank you to all my subscribers, my members, anyone who watches, anyone who likes, shares. Remember to press your notifications. Special thank you to my members. Why not think about becoming a member? We have an exclusive members live stream every Thursday. Also, you get to use the members emojis, and also the main thing is you get to support my channel. If you like my channel, YouTube channels, they rely on their members and things like that to keep going. So yeah, why not become a member? Thank you to those of you who send Ko-fis. They're so much appreciated. All these things help to keep a channel going for various reasons. There are you do have to pay your streaming and your this, that, and the other. And unfortunately, as of yet, my channel's not big enough that I could say that I'm a millionaire. Maybe this time next year I'll be a millionaire. But it's not about the money. I do this for a hobby. I enjoy doing it. I'm very interested in victim stories, and I really want justice for these poor people. Well, we'll look at them in a minute. Anyway. I could start waffling. I'm not going to start waffling. So yeah, thank you if you send a Ko-fi or you send a super sticker or you PayPal me. And as always, thank you to all of you that send me links to interesting articles about either the cases we're looking at or other cases. And don't ever think I'm ignoring your email or whatever, because I can't always get around to answering emails immediately. I try my best, but sometimes just time escapes me. But thank you for all that. And also some of the links you send or suggestions for cases, if I don't cover those cases, it's not because I don't think they're cases that are worth covering. They go on a list. And at the moment, I have been totally consumed, haven't I, with this mushroom trial. But it's important I'm going to follow it through to the end, and then when the verdict comes, I will have more free time. Though, can you imagine when this verdict comes, it's going to be like hell's let loose, isn't it? As far as articles and things, so it'll take a while to die down. Whatever the verdict is, whether the verdict's guilty or not guilty, there's going to be a big sort of a lot to unpick afterwards as well. So thank you, just thank you so much. Hello, lovely lurkers. Thank you for watching. Hello, loathsome lurkers, but actually I'm not going to give you a kiss. Thank you. Hello to you, replay crew. Thank you for watching. And now, as always, I'm going to go into the chat and say hello to those of you who are all waiting avidly for this golden buzzer, aren't we? Oh, I keep forgetting to put the chat up on the stage. Yeah. Okay, where are we? So, hi, Joanne. I hope you find it this time. Hi, Sheep Farming. Hi, David. Hi, Lily. Hi, Bluebell. Hope you're feeling better, David. Hi, Daniel. Happy Wednesday. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Maria. Hi, Miss Lee. I don't know if that's Miss Lull or Misty. I don't. Hi, Jane. Hi, Janet. Yeah, I have seen about those bodies. I've wanted to. I will be looking at that. Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if it was to do with America, but God. Anyway, never mind. I won't talk about that in this stream, but I will be talking about that at some point. That's a terrible thing, yeah. Hi, Friday. Hi, Maria. Yes, it was Maria. So the ones I can only access one. Yeah, because those from the Australian, they're behind like a paywall. You've got to sign up for $4 and then $44 every 4 weeks. I'm just not going to do that. But so yeah, there's a few. Anyway, I will be looking at the article that I can access, and I've got a few articles that I want to show, but it's all the ones that are to do with the Australian I can't access because they want. So now I can access. Easier to tell you the one I can access, which funny enough is the Herald Sun one, which normally you can't access that, but I am able to access that, and I'm going to be looking at that in a minute. Hi, Michelle. Yeah, that'd be a good idea, Maria. If you can screenshot them and send them, that'd be great because they look really interesting. So okay, so we're all here. We're going to start looking at. Should we start? Actually, we'll start with that article that Maria has sent. It's interesting. So the title of it is 5 Things We Know About Alleged Mushroom Cook, Secretive Erin Patterson. And former friends of Erin say she led a secretive life and was a true crime fan. But what else do we know about the woman now charged with murder? Oh, and before I just do that, I think what I'll do... let me see. I think I'm going to show the poll. So, because I forgot to show where we were with the poll last time. So do you remember I've got a poll on my community posts. If you haven't voted, please go and vote. Let me share it. Where is it? So this is the poll. So as the verdict finally approaches, hallelujah, God, it's still taking ages, in this sinister case, what do you think it will be? Not what you think in your own opinion, but what you think the jury will return. So remember, you're voting for not whether you think she's guilty or not, but what the jury will think. And the playlist is there if you want to recap anything. So we're currently on 79% think she will be found guilty as charged. 6% say she will be found not guilty. Don't forget, that doesn't mean to say that they think she's not guilty. It means they think the jury will find not guilty. And 15% say, I don't know. So it has changed a little bit, because for quite a while it was 86% thought guilty. Maybe as time's going on, people will change. I don't know if you can change your vote or not. But yeah, if you haven't voted, go onto the community page. In fact, I'll share it in chat, the link, and vote. Just out, it's not for it makes no difference. Obviously, it's only the jury can decide what the outcome is. Only the jury can decide what the outcome is, but just a bit of interest, if you like. So, okay, so let's go back to that article. So 5 things we know about Erin, according to the Herald Sun. Normally you can't get on the Herald Sun either, so I don't know how I'm able to get onto this. Let's have a look at the video of her talking. Remember this?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital. The loss of...
Yes, it's very weird, this, because she got all their names wrong as well. I just can't see how you could... I'm very upset about the loss of Don. Oh, Don is still in hospital. You know, she didn't even know who was still alive and who wasn't.
Ian and Heather.
Ian and Heather. Ian didn't die. Ian survived. Heather died. Gail died. But Ian didn't. The loss of Ian and why is, you know, I haven't seen anybody pick up on that apart from me. It's just bizarre to me she would get their names wrong. To me, that just shows how important they are to her.
And Gail, who were some of the best people that I've ever met.
Some of the best people that I've ever met.
Gail was like...
Oh, she's
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me.
Yeah.
And
that's what makes it all so much worse, because these are good people. You know, the more I look into Ian and Gail and Don and Heather, you know, of course, Don and Gail were the couple and Ian and Heather were a couple. The more you look into them, they were good people. They're like from a different age, aren't they? You know, they've been married forever. And, you know, you don't get that so much these days. People give up, don't they, in relationships and get divorces. And they were too nice. Do you know what I mean? They were like so nice to this woman. And she just didn't deserve any of it.
Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me. And I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us
and the loss to the community and to the families and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
So she's having to think too much about it. I mean, Erin never should have done this interview, of course. So, you know, although people have described her as a genius or so intelligent, she's not that intelligent. Whether you were guilty or innocent, you should never, ever, she should never have given this interview. Unless the police arrange, you know, sometimes the police arrange interviews, don't they, and things like that. Or to know there's some, you know, I sort of feel sorry for her in a little way, because at the end of the day, the press were all there at her home, weren't they? But she should have. I would have rung the police and got the police to come and remove them, because why were they there? You know, they shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have ambushed her like that. They really shouldn't. But then she came out and spoke to him that first time, but she realised then she'd made a mistake. She never spoke to them again. And of course, she lawyered up, and a lawyer must have told her not to. Any lawyer would tell you not to speak. She lawyered up quite quickly, didn't she? That again, to me, I know she says she was worried that she was going to get, people were going to think she was guilty, but she made herself look even more guilty. Anyway, I think she is guilty. I'm sorry, but I do.
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened.
She says, I can't fathom. She can't fathom that she's been caught out. She thought she was clever. The thing is, that was the time as well to admit about the dehydrated, to admit about foraging mushrooms. You know, people do make mistakes, but Erin lied about everything, didn't she? That's the problem. I think Erin's lies will undo her, because although Justice Beale might say, oh, she's not on trial for lying, no, she's not, but it does discredit everything she said, and she was her only witness. So, you know, it's got to make a difference to the way the jury look at her.
That Ian and Heather have lost their lives.
So she said it again. Ian and Heather have lost their lives. She got their names wrong again. For fuck's sake. How has she got their names wrong? Sorry, excuse my French, but it's so disrespectful. Ian and Heather have lost their lives. No. She didn't even know what their names were properly, or what had happened. She wasn't interested because she was too busy at this point. Her thoughts were all about covering her tracks, weren't they? How she was going to get out of this. So she wasn't even really aware of who died. But she loves them, but she didn't know their names properly.
And Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through, because my children love him.
Yeah.
And you must be pretty shaken up by this as well.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
I'm devastated. I love them. Now, she may not have meant to kill them. That's the only thing I'm clinging on to. But she still will get charged. She still should get found guilty, because if she intended to harm them and they died, that's still guilty. I do think there is a possibility she misjudged the amount of mushrooms she put in there, and meant to make the meal. But she looks sort of regretful there, doesn't she? I love them. Let's just see that. I mean, that is just the worst acting you've ever seen in your life. Thing is, if you really loved them and you were devastated, you wouldn't even be able to talk to the press, I don't think.
That they have lost their lives.
How are you?
I just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from?
Very bizarre. You know, it's wrong what they're doing. He's got the camera on her, and that, you know, she doesn't know what to do, does she? But they shouldn't be doing that. I do think they shouldn't be doing that. But Erin should have stayed in her car. I mean, I suppose it's easy in hindsight. Stayed in her car, rang the police, you know, and just not communicated with them at all. I mean, it is a bit, they're like vultures, aren't they, really? They talk about the social media, but that's not social media, that's the mainstream media. They are vultures.
Were they tipped from the property area?
I just ask you to leave me alone now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's
Where
what I
do the
have to
mushrooms
say.
come from? Were they picked
Thing is, she loved them so much she can't even remember their names.
by you, or where did they come from, Erin? Can you tell us? What meal did you cook them? Did you eat the same meal, Erin?
Let me go back one. It's going to come up with something else now. Hang on. So, Erin Patterson may now be a household name in Victoria, but what do we know about her? We know she was emotional after news of the deaths of 3 of her alleged lunch guests first broke as she faced the media and became confused about who had died and who had lived. Here are some other things that have been reported about the woman a former friend says was a true crime fan and led a secretive life. So 1, she's a mother. She's 48. She has 2 children. She's split from her husband. She was no longer living with her ex-husband and the children's father, Simon Patterson. Let's have a little look at him. So let me put a picture of Simon up so that we can remember. I'm sure he's in print. We're going to have a look at Simon talking actually later in this video. So she's an ex-newsletter editor. She took over a local newsletter from her now dead former in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, in 2018, editing the Borough Flyer newsletter till 2020. And the 2019 September-November edition of the newspaper included details of a local workshop teaching people in the community how to grow their own mushrooms. In the Currumborough workshop, people would be taught how to grow gourmet mushrooms at home using easy-to-source materials and low-tech methods. It's Spruicked. What does that mean, Spruicked? No idea. The class includes making your own oyster mushroom grow bag to take home, teaching notes, and a delicious afternoon tea, a notice in the newsletter read. There is no suggestion that the details published in this newsletter are anyway linked to the alleged mushroom lunch poisoning. She was a true crime fan. Friends and acquaintances of Erin say they have discovered a lot of her life was very secretive and have revealed she was a fan of the true crime genre. It came as new photos recently emerged in a Facebook group of a younger Miss Patterson, which appeared to have been taken more than a decade ago. We thought we knew her deeply, but we're now discovering that a lot of her life was very secretive, the ex-friend wrote in a Facebook group, and this, of course, is the photo of Erin when she was younger. They said she was a true crime fan and Lego obsessed. And don't forget, she was convicted of fleeing the scene of an accident. She had a drink driving charge, which is not mentioned much, is it? Because as somebody mentioned the other day, maybe now that those convictions, I should say, have expired. Because Mr. Justice Beale, let's have a look at him. When he was summing up, he said she had no previous convictions. But she does have previous convictions, quite serious convictions, doesn't she? But they could, if over 10 years has gone by, they may well have expired. I can't find my picture of, oh, there he is. So this is, of course, the judge in the hat, or the wig, I should say, that I put on him. So she's a property owner. It's been reported she currently owns 2 properties, a townhouse in Mount Waverley and a 2-storey home in Leongatha, which is the house that is, you can see on the screen. That looks like it looks really spooky to me now, sinister. And that's where she allegedly cooked the fatal mushroom meal on July the 29th. She also once owned a note. We had a look at that the other day, didn't we? Somebody sent me that, an oceanfront property in Eden in New South Wales. She inherited the home from her parents, Eitan and Heather Scudder, following their deaths, but she sold it in 2019 for $900,000. So don't forget, she had this big inheritance, but she also had other money. She had a lot of money. She's got a lot of money, Erin. A lot. Mucho dinero. No poco dinero, mucho. So former neighbours of Miss Patterson's parents told the Herald Sun the couple had retired to the remote seaside getaway and spent their last years there before their deaths. And according to neighbours, Mr. Scudder, known to friends as Hugh, lost his battle with cancer in 2011 before Heather succumbed to the same disease 8 years later. Sad. So you can understand why Erin maybe was a bit paranoid about having cancer, because she's got cancer in her family, hasn't she? But you still cannot understand why she lied about having cancer. So the house was described as an outstanding 4-bedroom house with uninterrupted water views of the South Pacific Ocean. Miss Scudder was a lecturer in children's literature at Monash University and was often quoted in the Herald Sun in 1999 and 2000. So there you go. There's what they've got to tell us about Erin. Now, what I want to look at now is what effect. Now, the trial is being held in Morwell, which is a small town near to Victoria, but it's a tiny town. That's where she decided, or that she wanted to have the trial for whatever reason. Now, it's amazing, really, isn't it? I'm just thinking, there is no court in my little village, but maybe in a nearer town, a small town. Imagine a high-profile court case, the effect it would have. All the media from all over Australia, and not only Australia, but from all over the world, the media descending on your small town. And it will have its positive effects, because, they're staying in the hotels, they're drinking coffee, they're eating food. This is what's going on in Morwell. So if you had stepped into one of the bustling cafes on the main street of Morwell in Victoria in the past 2 months, you might have been hard-pressed to find a spare table. And if you'd spent any time in courtroom 4 at the town's Latrobe Valley Supreme Court, you might have spied some familiar faces in the cafes, diners from opposing legal sides of one of the most talked about murder trials in Australian history. At one table, the defence team for the accused, Erin Patterson, clad in their barristers' gowns. Now let's just have a look at Mr. Mandy. It's funny, they have to, we've seen them going into the courtroom, haven't we, a few times. Colin Mandy, he is the defence attorney. He's had his work cut out, hasn't he? And the only defence he had really was that everyone else was lying. Erin was telling the truth, even though she'd lied so many times before. And the only witness he called was Erin. No character witness, no expert witnesses for the defence team. Just one witness, which was Erin, and she held forth for 3 days, didn't she? And her lies were exposed completely. This cannot be a not guilty verdict. It just can't. I don't see how it can, but of course it can. And this is his helper. I think she was called Sophie. So those two are the defence lawyers. And this, of course, is Dr. Rogers, Nanette Rogers. She's more informal, isn't she, than them? Whether she maybe she had her gown in her case and she put it on in the toilet before she went into court. I don't know. But I haven't seen a picture of her wearing her gown. But she set up a mammoth prosecution. 50 witnesses, experts, friends, hospital staff, the people that had done the investigations into where the mushrooms had come from. She called all those witnesses, over 50 witnesses, and exposed Erin's lies for what they were. Whereas Mr. Mandy, he could only come up with Erin in her own defence. She was it. Solo Erin. Nada más. Nobody else. Nadia más. Very, I think that's very telling, to be honest. But anyway, it's what the jury made of it that counts. Let me just make sure you're all okay. Hi, Julie. Oh, terrible. I'm hating every minute of it. I nearly passed out yesterday. Nearly passed out yesterday. It was awful. Awful, Julie. I expect it's the same for you where you are. Where am I? So we've got the defence team on one table in this cafeteria, clad in their barristers' gowns. Then 2 tables over sits the homicide squad, with the remaining settings taken up with court watchers, jury members. So they're just in the coffee shop with everybody else. Journalists, documentary makers, and all the while the members of the Patterson and Wilkinson families wait patiently for their takeaway coffee. It's awful, really, isn't it, when you think about it like that? So we've got these poor families of the victims and Ian, the survivor, trying to get a coffee and surrounded by like journalists and stuff. It's very strange. So the incidental union of defence and prosecution, pundits and families outside the courtroom has become a familiar vignette to those involved in the triple murder trial. Originally slated for 6 weeks, and now in its 10th. So yeah, remember originally it was supposed to be between 4 and 6 weeks. Then the judge said, oh, it might be quicker, and it's ended up being nearly double the length of time. And this is the cafe. They'd be doing well out of it. The Daily Cafe has become a regular hotspot for all the media visiting Morwell. They're probably hoping that the jury deliberations will last another 2 weeks. They'll be able to go on holiday with the extra money they've earned. So Supreme Court Justice Christopher Beale has handed down his final charge. He's summarised the law and the evidence the jury needs to consider when deciding whether Miss Patterson is guilty or not guilty. She's charged with murdering Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, and with attempting to murder Ian Wilkinson. She has always maintained her innocence, and her defence team says the addition of death cap mushrooms to the beef Wellington lunch in July 2023 was a tragic accident. It just reminds me of Laurie Daybell, family tragedy, murder. Murder is not a tragic accident or a family tragedy. While the crowd of regular spectators has thinned towards the end of the trial, for the past few months, glimmers of country hospitality have shone through the usual aspects of an area of disadvantage. So I'm surprised that the crowd of spectators has thinned, because you would definitely want to be there when that buzzer went, wouldn't you? I mean, I know, like if you'd gone every day, you'd have spent nearly 3 days, just hanging around and nothing happening. But you can always find something to do. Get on your phone, get on your Spider Solitaire or whatever. But I would definitely, if I'd been sitting through that trial, I would definitely want to be there when the verdict was called. So for the past few months, glimmers of country hospitality have shone through the usual aspects of an area of disadvantage. The trial has been the talk of the town, with cafe owners enjoying the uptick in business from those that have called Morwell home for the past couple of months. So what happens to a community when a big trial comes to town? Talk of the town, Michael Mafrofridis is slicing mortadella and making panini sandwiches for the lunch crowd at Mavro's Deli on Church Street in Morwell. It took a couple of weeks for the Metropolitan journalists to discover the precinct, but after a visit they were hooked. The cafe next door to the deli, oh my God, has a sandwich board stuck to the wall with a chalk sign announcing the lunch special for the day, mushroom soup. Oh my God, you couldn't make this shit up, could you? You couldn't make it up. Mushroom soup. I bet Ian's not in there having some mushroom. I bet Ian's never ate a mushroom since. What do you reckon? I certainly wouldn't. What, after you'd been poisoned with mushrooms? I think you'd be struggling to eat mushrooms again, wouldn't you? Michael, 25, and his brother Con took over Mavro's Deli in 2019. And he said that even with the tumultuous COVID years included, the recent trial had been one of the biggest things the deli had experienced. We've definitely had quite an influx of people coming through, especially the journos and whatnot, he said. There he looks happy. So this is Con and Michael Mafrofridis at their panini bar. There are a lot of Greek people. There's a big Greek community, isn't there, around... I didn't know that before, some of the cases that I've looked at. This big connection between Greece and Australia, I didn't know about it. So after a couple of weeks, someone came and had one panini and spread the word. Now we've had regular journalists come. And he said that despite the lengthy trial, customers were still curious about what was happening each day in court. It's definitely a hot topic for everyone. So it's the nature of the alleged crimes that has captured the attention and imagination of the world. According to Associate Dean of Communications at RMIT, which I've no idea what that stands for, Lisa Waller. Professor Waller has researched the relationship between the media, regional reporters and crime, and she spearheaded a study on rural media and justice, including the 1997 death of toddler Jaden Lesky, that drew the country's attention to the nearby town of Mo. Is that the case that Erin was very much interested in? I don't know about that case. The town's reputation is associated with Jaden's death to this day, and her study found that when it comes to country towns, people focused on where an alleged crime happened more than when they would in a metropolitan area. And it all looks very quaint. Apparently there's quite a lot of crime there, as there often is in small towns, isn't there? She said both the public and the media were often captivated by alleged crimes in rural settings. It's human nature and the power of the narrative. We've got another cafe. Claudia Davis has run her cafe on George Street for the past 18 years. Yeah, they look very happy, don't they? I mean, they must be doing a boom. She said local customers seem to be giving the CBD a wide berth, perhaps thinking that parking would be limited or wanting to avoid the legal crowd and the media. And she said she'd been cautious about commenting to customers about the trial out of respect for the families involved. I take my hat off to everyone reporting. They're so careful not to put opinions into it. So, unlike me, but then you go, I'm not a reporter, I'm a YouTube creator. We do have a few people talking about it, but I think people are being sensitive about it. One thing we were worried about was that people would talk about it, not knowing who may be in the cafe, and that could cause distress. Yeah, because if, Ian or the family were in there, or even if the jurors were in there, because they're not supposed to have any. I'm surprised the jurors are allowed to go into cafes where there's other people and that who might be talking about the case. And we've got Lindy Book. She's owned and operated the Daily Cafe and Food Store for 3 years. And she said that due to the cafe's proximity to the legal precinct, plenty of media and legal staff had dropped by for their daily coffee. We've got the media journalists, the same people every day. The Patterson family, I think, have been coming in, and we've had lots of faces here visiting, which is interesting. The trial has been the talk of the town. There are lots of people who are just randoms here for the trial, here every day, camping out the front of the court, and they're here every morning because it's first come, first served in the court. So if you want a seat, you have to get there early, don't they? They have to get there early, otherwise they don't get a place. So, hi, Sean. Hi, Nadina. Oh, do you? It's interesting to have some local. What does everybody make of it all, Nadina? It must be strange, when your town gets taken over like this. It must be strange. Okay, what we're going to now. All right, so I want to talk about the survivors. The survivor, singular, there's only one survivor, and the victims. I just wanted to talk about them a bit because, of course, Erin gets all the attention. And the thing is, to me, these are the people that are important. And I keep repeating it, and I'll keep on repeating it. Whatever happens in this case, the important people in this case are these 4 people who went through absolute hell, and 3 of which lost their lives. So Don, Simon's father, Gail, we're going to look at some information about them in a moment. They were married ever since they were very young. We're going to hear some things that Simon said about them at their funeral. And do you know what? Something that is interesting. Erin did not go to their funeral. She did not go to their funeral, but she hadn't been arrested by then or anything. You think that's strange? Why didn't she go? Erin can't face up to her actions, I think. And then, of course, we've got poor Gail, Ian's wife. So all those 3 went through agony and then died. And Ian went through agony, a liver transplant, but survived, bless him. So we're going to have a little look at them. So first of all, we have looked at this once, but people might have missed it. Ian did a sermon, didn't he? And this is not his whole. So I would have liked to. I've been looking for the whole sermon, but I can't find it because Ian is a pastor, a pastor, not a pastor. So let's have a look what he had to say in his sermon. Bless him. I find it very interesting, this, because it gave a really good insight into the type of person Ian is. He's a good person. These were good people, nice people, and Erin was contemptuous of them because they were so religious, because they were good. She didn't value that. She thought, remember, she told her friends, "Oh, fuck them." And what was the other thing? She said, "Oh, this family." She complained about them. She made fun of the fact that they were religious. This is what that is the real Erin Patterson. She's a horrible person.
This has been a pretty big week in my life. At the start of the week, we're 6 months since Heather and Gail and Don went to be with the Lord.
Went to be with the Lord. You imagine that Erin would make fun of that, wouldn't she? She would make fun of that. Ian is very hot. He reminds me of my dad. He's a very humble man. You can just see that. How could she do it? How could she?
Wednesday was the day, the anniversary day of my induction as pastor. Friday was my birthday, turning 70. And yesterday was our 45th wedding anniversary.
Oh. So
it's been...
Sorry, all in that week. 6 months since it happened. His birthday. It was a year from when he was inducted as a pastor. All that in that 1 week. He does look healthy, though. I'll say that. He's 70 years old, and the hospital have done so well to help him survive because he does look healthy now.
In a pretty big week. Let me encourage you to keep on going. The way is sometimes hard, but God is good. He is with us.
So he's still got his faith, even after all that's happened. Keep on going. How many times, God, I'm the world's worst. I try and be positive, don't you? But things get you down, don't they? Life does get you down. It is hard. Even not great big things like what's happened to Ian. But to hear him saying that, keep on going and God is good and that, it's just, it made me very emotional. It's lovely. I hope he's okay. I really do.
He promised never to leave or forsake us.
Oh.
And I can say that is true.
Yeah, so he's still got his faith. So Erin has not managed to remove his faith. Right, now let me just turn that one off. So we're going to have a look. This is Heather's obituary. This is his wife, Heather. October the 4th, 2023 was her funeral, or her service to celebrate the life of Mrs. Heather Allison Wilkinson. Will be held at the Corranborough Indoor Recreation Centre, Sports Lane, Corranborough. So on Wednesday, October the 4th, commencing at 11 a.m, and in lieu of flowers, donations to this, which is what? Will it go to it? Oh. So they asked for donations in memory of raising funds for Austin Health, one of Australia's major health services based in Melbourne's northeast, renowned for specialist work, cancer, which of course Erin lied about having, infectious diseases, obesity, liver transplant. Now, you know that Heather, they wanted to give her a liver transplant, so her liver died. That's how serious these death cap mushrooms are. That's how serious the symptoms are. Her liver died, but Erin just had a bit of diarrhea. She never had any death cap mushrooms. Spinal cord injury, intensive care medicine, neurology, endocrinology, mental health and rehabilitation. So in lieu of flowers, they wanted these donations to go to this place, Austin Health, in her memory. So donations would be appreciated. Envelopes will also be available at the service. Beloved wife of Ian, daughter of Ted and Esma, deceased, sister to Gail, that's the other lady that died, and Lynn, cherished mum of David, Luke, Ruth and Elizabeth. So 4 children she had. Favourite mother-in-law to Brad, Jane and Kylie, grandma to Elisa, Caitlin, Charlotte, Rebecca, Chloe and Gemma. So you see how the ripples go out, don't they? So this is just one of the victims, Heather. All these people have been affected. Ian as her husband, her own children, her grandchildren. that have lost their grandma. A friend to many, hers was a life well lived, and we love her, dearly missed until we meet again at home with her Lord Jesus. So, you know, these are the real people that have been affected in this horrible, horrible case, isn't it? Now, she's buried at the same place where Don and Gail are buried. That's what we're going to look at. It's Corumbura Cemetery. They're all buried there. Let me just share this tab instead. Put that one down. So we're going to just have a look at this video. Flowers placed on the graves of Don and Gail Patterson at Corumbura General Cemetery in Victoria. So we'll have a look at this. And this is doesn't show Heather's grave, but Heather is buried in the same place. So they're buried next to each other by the look of it. And somewhere in that cemetery, Heather is also. Now, at least, you know, they had a bit of a life. You know, they had a life. They weren't young, but still they had life left to live. You know, they weren't. It wasn't their time. Was not their time, was it? Just makes me so angry. Now, what's the next one I want to show? So I'm just putting some windows down, the ones that I've looked at. Done that. Let's have a look at this one. Oh, so this is going to tell us about those black tarpaulins. Oh no, where's the one of Simon? Hang on. I want to see, before I go to that, I want to see. Hang on, let's just, did you see the flowers? I might not have shared it. Let's do it again. So yeah, I'm not sure if I shared this before, so I just thought I'd show it again. This is the cemetery where Don and Gail have been laid to rest. And what I want to show you next, yeah, here it is. I'm going to show you Simon talking about his parents at the funeral service that Erin did not attend. Strange that, don't you think? She hadn't been arrested then. So we're going to look at that. First of all, I just want to say hello to Joanne, and thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much for the super sticker. That's let me put my thank you on. Very kind. You're a very kind supporter of my channel. Thank you so much. I just can't find my thank you sticker. Oh dear. Where is it? Down the bottom here somewhere. There it is. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much. Very kind. So yeah, we're going to have a look now at Simon talking at Don and Gail's service, which, as I say, for some unknown reason, Erin didn't even bother going to, even though she hadn't been arrested at the time. Guilt, I expect, personally, I think.
The deadly mushroom lunch, to the memorial service for two of the victims. Erin Patterson was nowhere to be seen, but her ex-husband Simon had plenty to say as he farewelled his parents.
They would always wave goodbye and they parted ways.
Annie, now, Annie, thank you so much. Let me put my thank you up again. Another very kind. I have the very best chatters, don't I? Thank you so much for the Ko-fi. Very much appreciated. Okay, let's have a little listen to Simon. And I must say, because, you know, Simon's, I'll play it back from the beginning. He gets very upset, Simon. And the things that he says at the memorial service, they're so sweet. These were just sweet people. You know, they weren't like, how can I explain it? They were humble, sweet people, what you'd call God-fearing folks. You know, they went to church, they believed in God. They just believed in community, and they were nice people. You know, and so, you know, you sort of think nice. They didn't stand out in any particular way, like, you know, like Erin wanted to stand out. They didn't go off, well, they certainly didn't go off bloody, you know, drinking and driving, crashing their car and trying to flee from the police, like Erin tried to do. They weren't superior, were they, in any way? They were kind, nice people. You know what I mean? You say they're sort of nice, but they really were. You know, they don't know how to, as I say, remind me very much, Ian reminds me very much of my own father, just a quiet man, you know, not doing anything spectacular, but just in the community. They did not deserve this. I mean, nobody deserves it. Well, maybe some people do. No, I'm only joking. It's a joke. But the last people that deserved this treatment that Erin gave these people was them, because they did nothing but be nice to her. And she was contemptuous of their niceness, wasn't she? Fuck 'em, she said to her friends. Fuck 'em.
Was wondering, would she turn up? The mother who served the deadly mushroom lunch to the memorial service for two of the victims. Erin Patterson was nowhere to be seen, but her ex-husband Simon had plenty to say as he farewelled his parents.
They would always wave goodbye and they parted ways. It's partly because one day would be the last wave. As Mum and Dad lay in comas in the Austin hospital in their final days, and each day we were unsure whether they would recover or not, it was comforting to know that when we said, "See you later," we knew it was true.
They were born 2 months.
Yeah, so their comfort that they've got is in their faith and their belief. He said, when we said to them, "See you later," we knew it was true. As they believe in it. They believe in it. Oh, and look at this picture. Oh, that's Gail with her red hair. It looked like Pippi Longstocking a bit there. Just they've been together forever, ever since they were, and they were happy together. You could see, you know, you could just see they were one of those, you know, one of those couples from years back. I don't know if couples are like this these days, but, you know, they were happy together. I'm sure they had their problems. Same with my mum and dad. They stuck together and they were together right up to the end. They were married over 50 years. They had their issues through the time, but people stuck together, didn't they? There weren't free problems, I suppose. Now everybody gives up just when they have one argument, don't they? But yeah, you know, it's just, that's a lovely photo, isn't it? Such a beautiful photo.
Months apart and died within a day of each other.
Oh.
Don and Gail Patterson farewelled by those who loved them most.
It was no fluke that Mum's final text message on our family group chat as she lay in Dandenong Hospital was, "Lots of love to you all."
It's the first time we've heard from Simon Patterson, whose parents, Gail and Don, and Aunt Heather died. Simon's uncle, Reverend Ian Wilkinson, remains in hospital. The tiny Victorian communities of Leongatha and Currumbara, torn apart by tragedy, united in grief.
Welcome everyone to this big occasion on a beautiful Kurrambara day.
Don and Gail Patterson weren't
I'm not sure
only
about
pillars
this.
of this community, their church and the local school where they worked, they touched lives around the world, from Botswana to China, where they mentored young people and even taught English.
Mum's SMS notification sound was from the song War. Ha! What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. That's what happened every time there was an SMS on Mum's phone.
Simon also paying tribute to hospital staff.
The overtime work their team did, just to let Mum visit Dad one last time before he was shipped off to ICU. That was amazing.
While hundreds turned out to pay their respects today, there was one person missing, the woman who cooked the lethal lunch.
Yeah, funny that. I wonder why she didn't go. You know, she couldn't face people knowing what she'd done, I think.
That was just over a month ago. While she hasn't been charged, Erin Patterson was named as a suspect because police say she prepared the poisonous meal. And we can reveal she's since visited.
Now, on this video where she's walking here with her hands in her pocket, she looks like she don't give a shit to me, to be honest. I don't think she looks upset about anything. Just that's how I feel about her. She just doesn't care.
Visited her Melbourne lawyer at least 3 times in recent weeks.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
You know, to me, Erin is Miss Moneybags. She's just flashing the money around. She like, get the solicitor, sack that solicitor. She didn't like him. Get another solicitor. I expect she's flashing the money around in prison. She just like, she thinks she's so superior. That's how it occurs to me. And something that keeps occurring to me, why did she have lambs on her property? She said about putting the lambs. What was it, to kill them, to eat? I mean, what would she have lambs for? Or sell them for somebody else to kill them to eat? I mean, why would she have lambs on her property?
Excuse me.
Despite initially speaking with a current affair, Erin's remained tight-lipped since.
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don, and Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail.
We can tell you, though, she claims to have given authorities a sample of her leftover beef Wellington, which she says she retrieved from the bin.
Whatever the outcome, whatever the reasons for somebody being thrust into the spotlight, it's going to put them under intense pressure, ultimately, psychologically and emotionally.
Is Xanthi again? Oh God, she's never off the telly, Xanthi.
Because
they mustn't have any other psychologists in Australia. They always bring her on.
We don't really have a baseline to understand, for example, Erin Patterson's body language would normally be.
Criminologist Dr. Xanthi Mallet says the discarded food dehydrator found by police at a local tip could be the most critical clue in the mushroom meal mystery.
Erin Patterson has stated that she got rid of that because she was nervous after a comment that her ex-husband made at the hospital, and that kind of made her get rid of it through fear that she would be suspected.
In a statement prepared by Erin Patterson's lawyer and sent to police, she claims her ex Simon asked her,
"Is that what you used to poison them?"
The big question is, are there spores of death cap?
Yeah, so remember, as far as the dehydrator was concerned, she said she threw it away. It was Simon's fault because Simon said to her, "Is that what you used to kill my parents?" Simon denies saying that to her. So you have to just decide, well, who do you believe? I just know who I believe. I can't believe anything that she says. You know, it's as simple as that. But yeah, so that's what she said. I threw it away because it was Simon's fault. I threw it away.
Mushrooms in that dehydrator. That's really at the heart of this.
Forensic toxicologist Dr. Michael Robertson is regularly called upon to provide evidence in court cases. He says for the death cap's toxin to be identified in the victims' bodies, blood and urine samples would need to have been taken soon after ingestion.
It's probably gone within 12 hours from the bloodstream. So by the time they've died, then the toxin's gone.
You know, that's interesting, isn't it, as well? Because remember, when they tested everybody for these toxins, wasn't it that Don was positive and Ian was positive, but Gail and Heather had no toxins when they were finally tested, you know, for death cap mushrooms. But according to what this guy's saying, they're out of the system within 12 hours through urine, etc. Don't you think Erin perhaps knew that? Honestly, I think that day when Erin turned up at the hospital and the hospital said, "Oh, we suspect death cap mushroom poisoning," I bet she nearly died, literally, because she couldn't believe that they'd found out. She's read up on this. So if they're out of the system normally within 12 hours, she would have thought, I don't know what she would have thought, that she would never have got found out about these death cap mushrooms. She just totally underestimated the police's intelligence and overestimated her own intelligence, in my opinion.
He says because mushroom poisoning is so rare, police may have had to import a lab sample from overseas. Then he says toxicologists would need to establish a testing method.
That might take 2, 3, 4 weeks just getting the method of analysis up and going before they can even test the samples.
For now, the focus is on healing, but with so...
Oh, you know, so yeah, at least they had a long life together and, you know, apparently they were born within a couple of months of each other and they died within 2 days of each other. So their whole life has been together, hasn't it? And now they're buried together. But they had life left to live and they were given a positive contribution to the community. What positive contribution is Erin giving to the world, I wonder? Well, thank God she didn't get to become a nurse or a midwife.
Few answers, it's something that's barely begun.
The hope of see you later, that was their hope, and it's ours. And in the meantime, we'll miss them.
Beautiful tribute there from Simon, and it must have been incredibly tough for him.
Yeah, it must have been tough for him. I'd love to know what Simon thinks of it all. You know, and what Ian thinks of it. You know, I'd love to know, does Ian feel it was a deliberate poisoning? You know, be interesting to see, isn't it? Anyway, let's have a look at, so now, of course, we've got these black tarps. We're going to look at them. So this
people is deciding.
So this is what happened the other day, wasn't it? Last weekend. Someone, they said Erin's supporters, probably someone Erin paid to go. Has she got any supporters? I don't know. Who are her supporters? Went and put black tarps up around her home. So are they expecting her to come home? I wonder.
Was it murder by mushrooms? Right now in a country town in rural Victoria in Australia, a jury of 12 people is deciding, did a local mother murder 3 family members with death cap mushrooms cooked in a beef Wellington, or was it all just an innocent mistake? Erin Patterson has been on trial for 10 weeks now. This is a court case that has transfixed a nation and garnered worldwide attention. And an answer isn't too far away. I'm Hugh Whitfeld. Welcome to a special edition of The World. For this episode, I'm joined by 7 News Melbourne crime reporter Cassie Zervos and 7news.com.au senior reporter Tita Smith. Hello to both of you. You've both spent pretty much the last 2 months in court in Morwell in country Victoria following this sensational trial. Cassie, let's start with you. Who are the people involved in this case? We have Erin Patterson and 4 family members, or 4 members of her family. Talk us through them.
Yeah, absolutely, Hugh. So, of course, we've got Erin Patterson's estranged husband, Simon Patterson. We have his parents, Don and Gail Patterson, who tragically passed away from the meal. We've got the pastor from the church, Ian Wilkinson. He is the sole survivor from that fatal meal. And, of course, his wife, Heather Wilkinson, as well, who also tragically passed away. It's important to note these pictures show Ian Wilkinson every single day throughout this 9-week, going into its 10th week now, trial. He has been inside that courtroom every single day. And you can only imagine the thoughts and the processes and what he's been thinking throughout the evidence that's been heard throughout this marathon trial. So those names, those people are the key players in this murder trial. And throughout the hearing, we've, of course, heard from Simon, Erin's estranged husband, and, of course, Ian as well.
And Ian, did he give evidence for the prosecution or the defence?
So he was called during the first week of the trial. He was asked questions by both the prosecution and the defence. And the things that came out from his evidence, and keep in mind, it's the first time we have heard from him since July 2023. After he did make that miraculous recovery, he did go back to preaching at his local church in Korumburra. But other than that, we haven't heard from him. So it was the first time we've heard his voice, and we've seen him in that stand. And what he said that really made, I guess, people sit up was the fact that he said his wife, Heather, was really excited to be attending that lunch on that day. And she had been looking forward to it. It was something that...
Poor, the poor woman. Yeah, she was looking forward to it. They were really happy to have been invited, weren't they? That's it. That sort of people they are. Just nice. They thought it'd improve their relationship with Erin. Oh, I don't know what Ian must be thinking about all this, but yeah, just nice people looking forward to being invited to that lunch. And they just didn't know what was in store for them.
That her and Erin had been discussing through text messages and that lead-up process as well. And we also heard he and Simon Patterson gave evidence during that week 1 and week 2 back at the end of April about the different coloured plates. Both made note in the witness box that Heather, his wife, so Ian's wife, who has tragically...
Now, as you know, the plates are my obsession. So the plates were never found. She said they weren't on different plates. She said they weren't different sizes. Hers wasn't a different colour. So again, who do we believe? Do we believe Ian, the nice guy who's just seems to have a completely pure heart when you hear him talking? Who do we believe? Do we believe him? Or do we believe her? It's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it? She's thrown him under the bus, said he's a liar, basically. I think is the liar. Horrible woman. I mean, she really is not a nice woman. Even whatever happens, that is her. That look at her face, that is the true Erin. And whatever happens in this case, even if she is by some miracle found not guilty, she's still a liar, a serial liar, who lied about having cancer, who doesn't care who she throws under the bus as long as it's not her. So it's not, even
since passed away.
Even if she's found not guilty, she's not, it's not going to be good for her, is it?
From the meal, she made note that was Erin short of crockery? And I think that's a really important thing to mention. Now, she said this on the way to hospital. I think that's a really interesting point to mention to both Simon and her husband in that moment when she was very, very unwell. So his evidence was a while, and he made that key moment note of the different coloured plates that Erin served the food on, and that each person was served an individual beef Wellington.
So, Cassie, just on this, with the different coloured plates, the three guests were served plates that looked one way, and then Erin, the evidence says, and the court was told, was served her meal on a different coloured plate?
Yes, that's correct. So Ian's evidence was that everyone was served on a darker coloured plate, and Erin served her meal on a brighter orangey pastel kind of coloured plate. And everyone sort of made note of that, and obviously it was mentioned post the meal too, with Heather mentioning that both to Simon and to her husband. Both Gail and Heather Wilkinson and Gail Patterson made note at the meal, this is Ian's evidence that we heard, they wanted to have a look at Erin's pantry. They were both rearranging their pantries at the time, and they wanted to have a look at how she arranged her pantry and what was in there and whatnot. And she was very hesitant to allow them to do that. That was Ian's evidence. That's what we heard during his time in the witness box.
So, Tita, Erin Patterson, now aged 50 years old, there is little doubt that she served this lunch back in July 2023. What has been the key parts of the prosecution case? What have they been trying to prove?
The crux of this case boils down to whether or not she deliberately and intentionally poisoned the beef Wellingtons. She's come back and argued that it was all an accident. And as part of the prosecution case, they have been bringing through dozens of witnesses over the past 10 weeks to support their argument that she intentionally poisoned the meals. We've heard from medical staff who tended to Erin Patterson and who were able to account for what they reported was strange behaviour in the days after the lunch or in the aftermath when she did appear at hospital. The prosecution say that Erin Patterson engaged in incriminating conduct with several factors in this case. We've heard that there were resets performed.
Do you remember the judge made a big thing going through the incriminating conduct that the prosecution alleges? And that's what, it is the lies and the incriminating conduct, if anything, that will convict Erin, but who knows what the jury's made of it all.
Formed on the phone that was handed to police, that there were lies that were told to police about foraging, that apparently she allegedly led the police on a wild goose chase to try and chase up the source of the mushrooms that were in that beef Wellington. They are also arguing that she was reluctant initially when she came to the hospital to get treatment for herself and for her children. She said, yes, I was reluctant at first, but has provided reasons why, saying that she's had a bad history with medical staff in the past with treatment for her children, and that she doesn't have much faith in the hospital system. And
so she's not got much faith in the hospital system, but she was a bloody hypochondriac. She was always down the hospital, wasn't she? Also, she wanted to train to be a nurse and a midwife. So it's all just cojones, what she says. You can't believe it. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with this video, just 30, well, it won't be 30 seconds. I'm not going to do an Erin Patterson and do the 9 seconds. I expect everyone's time in my bathroom breaks these days. But I need a bathroom break, so I'm just going to go and I'll leave you with this video and I'll come back shortly. It won't be 9 seconds, but it won't be 9 minutes either. It'll be a couple of minutes.
That she didn't come prepared to be able to be admitted to hospital once it became apparent to her that they were going to admit her. The prosecution have also argued that there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that suggests that she was aware of a website where there were postings about death cap mushrooms in autumn 2023, and as shown from searches that were performed on her computer, and that there was evidence to show that there was death caps that were dehydrated in her in the dehydrator, which was later recovered from a local tip as well. So there's lots of little factors there that they are using to prove their case, but the defence have also come back trying to argue that it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, so Cassie, run us through some of those key elements of Erin Patterson's defence.
So Colin Mandy, her barrister, essentially says the jury needs to rely on these 2 questions. And if they can answer these 2 questions, and I'll read out what he said to the jury because it's actually quite interesting. He says the jury needs to determine, was there a reasonable possibility the death caps landed in the meal by accident, and was there a reasonable possibility she didn't intend to kill or cause serious harm to her guests? He said, quote, if either of those is a reasonable possibility, then you must find her not guilty, which is quite big. These 2 statements are quite big. And I think another aspect to look at, and as Tita mentioned, the prosecution were going to outline why you should find this woman guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. They said that their case basically revolves around 4 key elements of deception. And the first, which we'll touch on, is the lie about the cancer claim. The second is that she deliberately sourced death cap mushrooms. The cover-up, the fourth key one is the cover-up, and what Tina just mentioned as well, her behaviour post the meal. And then the 4th is, of course, the dumping of the dehydrator and lying to police in her initial police interview, that she, 1, never foraged for mushrooms, and 2, that she never bought a dehydrator or dumped it. So that's what the prosecution is basing their case around, which is incredibly interesting. But her behaviour post the meal, they say, is incriminating and serves as murderous intent. But they don't have a motive. They can't stand in front of the jury and say, we believe Erin Patterson murdered 3 people and tried to murder a 4th because of X, Y, and Z. They admitted that. But now it's up to the jury to determine if there's enough reasonable doubt or if there is not enough reasonable doubt. So it's quite fascinating in that sense because, yes, her behaviour may be questionable, but as her lawyer says, does that make her a murderer? That's up to 12 people to now decide.
So, Tita, the lies that have been heard in court, the lie about having cancer and seeking cancer treatment and what she did with her phone and things like that, they haven't been denied by her defence, have they? They've just been explained by them to the court.
For the most part, Hugh, but some of them have been denied in some sense. For example, the cancer claim. So we heard from Ian Wilkinson that she said at the lunch that she was diagnosed with cancer, and then also we've heard from Simon Patterson that he spoke to his father, Don, in the hospital after lunch, and Don reported that she had told her cancer guests that she had been diagnosed with some form of cancer and that she was expecting to undergo treatment. However, on the stand, Patterson said she did not explicitly say that she had been diagnosed and said that she may have suggested that she would need some treatment coming up. And was a little bit vague about that. But for other lies, they have admitted that is what she did, but they're...
I'm back. Hang on, I need to put my... my picture back. Yeah, see that in the chat you're talking about the possible sentences. And Joanne was saying, 22 years. Yeah, but surely for 3 people, she would get 22. Anyway, that's, we have to, of course, she might not be found guilty yet. God, you just can't imagine it, can you? But then it'll be a lot of discussion, won't it, about the sentencing if she is found guilty. But I know that the sentences in Australia aren't very long, are they, unfortunately?
Defence is that she panicked. For example, that includes the dumping of the dehydrator. Erin says that Simon, when she was in hospital and he was there, he confronted her about the dehydrator and said, "Is that what you used to poison my parents?" Simon, when he was on the stand, he denies ever having said that to her, but she says as part of her defence case that it was at that point that she panicked, and that was when she started to suspect that the death cap mushrooms that she didn't realise were death cap mushrooms at the time, but mushrooms that she had foraged may have made their way into the meal, and she had started to worry that her children may be impacted and taken off her, because at that point there were child protection workers becoming involved in the case, and to kind of out of that panic of the consequences, she started to behave in ways like dump the dehydrator to conceal what she feared might have been a poisoning on her behalf.
Yeah, and you know, that was about the dumping of the dehydrator. But remember before, you know, she'd told the police that she'd never had a dehydrator. You know, so this is besides the fact of her dumping it. She said no, she'd never foraged for mushrooms. She'd never, you know, so it's nothing to do with what Simon said to her. She was trying to cover up. She could not believe that the police would find out what they did, and she could not believe. She'll have researched these death cap mushrooms so much, she knew that it would pass out of their systems within 12 hours or whatever. That's obviously what happened with Gail and Heather, because they had no death cap mushrooms anymore in their system, because they come out through the urine. Maybe they just went to the toilet more often than Don and Ian, because they tested positive. So Erin knew all that. So she was hoping that before anything ever got discovered, maybe she wasn't thinking they would die. I still keep thinking of that. I think she misjudged, because again, she wasn't as clever as she thought she was. When she was weighing them, remember the photos of them on the scales that were found on her phones? She was weighing them. She was trying to judge what was the right amount of death cap mushrooms to give, just to, you know, upset someone's tummy or make them suffer, but not maybe to kill them. Maybe that's what happened. But in my eyes, there's no doubt she did it on purpose. No doubt.
Okay, both of you, Tita and Cassie, stay right there. As we've been saying, the jury has now retired in this case. They've only got through about 2 hours of deliberations today. That's Monday in Victoria, before choosing to go.
Yeah, don't forget this was a court. So they've had so they've now done 2 full days, and those 2 hours on that very first day. Now, how long is this going to go on for? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? But I think it might be tomorrow. We might get something tomorrow.
Home or be sequestered away. We'll come back to Cassie and Tita in a moment, but let's just recap from 7 News court reporter Estelle Griepink, who filed this report.
As the sun sets on the mushroom murder trial, the countdown to the verdict is now on. The fate of accused triple murderer Erin Patterson resting on the shoulders of 12 local people, who this afternoon were reminded, use your heads, not your hearts. After 9 weeks in the courtroom, 2 members of the 14-person jury were today balloted off. The final makeup now 5 women and 7 men. The 2 men excluded from the final vote told, I don't know whether you'll feel relieved or frustrated, but be assured you've made an important contribution to the administration of justice.
There you go. There's Justice Beale without his wig on. Yeah. I mean, what will there be? Will those jurors, will they be relieved or will they be frustrated? I think I would definitely be frustrated. They've sat through weeks of this trial and now they're not going to have an impact on the final stages of it. But anyway, it does make the sort of balance, if you like, of the jury. Look, let's have a look at the... So
the 2 men excluded from the final vote told of 12 local people, who this afternoon were reminded, use your heads, not your hearts. After 9 weeks in the courtroom, 2 members of the...
Yeah, so it was, there were 14 jurors, because one had already been kicked off, hadn't they? Because they apparently had been talking about it with their family and friends or something. So there were 15 jurors originally, one was kicked off, and then we were left with 9 men, 5 women, and now 2 of those 2 men were balloted off.
14-person jury were to...
So we've got more even sort of gender spread now. So you've got 7 men and 5 women. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, who would be more sympathetic to Erin? Would you think men would be more sympathetic to Erin? Or do you think women would be more sympathetic to Erin? I don't know. You know, who would be more or less likely to believe what she had to say?
day balloted off. The final makeup now 5 women and 7 men. The 2 men excluded from the final vote told, "I don't know whether you'll feel relieved or frustrated, but be assured you've made an important contribution to the administration of justice." The jury have been told to only discuss the case when they're together in the jury room, where they've been provided with transcripts and exhibits from the case. Each day, they'll deliberate from around 10:30 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, before they're sequestered in a hotel each night. When the group reach a unanimous verdict, they've been told to press a buzzer. They'll then go back into the courtroom where they've spent the last 9 weeks. The jury forewoman to answer the question, "Have you agreed on your verdict?" In his final instructions to the jury, Justice Christopher Beale reminded...
Did she say forewoman then? Have they chosen a forewoman, did she say? Let me just listen
to press a buzzer. They'll then go back into the courtroom where they've spent the last 9 weeks. The jury forewoman to answer the question.
Yeah, forewoman. So they've chosen the foreperson is a woman. So yeah, we're all waiting for this buzzer, aren't we? We're all waiting for this buzzer. Hopefully it'll come tomorrow. And then, yeah, they'll be asked, have you agreed on your verdict?
Have you agreed on your verdict? In his final instructions to the jury, Justice Christopher Beale reminded them Ms. Patterson does not have to prove anything and that it's up to the prosecution to prove their case beyond reasonable doubt. That's despite the prosecution conceding there's no evidence of a motive and the defence arguing there's evidence Ms. Patterson had good reason not to murder her lunch guests.
So, yeah, no motive was expressed, but you don't have to find a motive. Because quite often in murder cases, the motive is only known to the perpetrator. People sometimes, they kill people just because they're fed up with them, or just because they've offended them over something really small that, what we would think was really small, but it's the perpetrator is obsessed over it, There is not always a motive, or maybe there is a motive, but only Erin knows it. But Colin Mandy, the defence, what he said, of course, was there's more reason for her not to kill them. That maybe the jury will be thinking about that.
Or evidence of motive not to kill. The jury must reach...
So there is evidence of motive not to kill. I don't agree with that. I don't think there's ever evidence of a motive not to kill. Because, let me just think about that. I'm just trying to think of some cases and things. How can you have evidence of not to kill? Because I suppose if somebody is like treating you really well and, but this is the thing, I think, with Erin. She maybe a couple of years ago she would have had motive not to kill, but they were getting out of her control, weren't they? They weren't inviting her to parties. She was losing she wasn't Queen Bee anymore. So anyway, I don't go along with that. But I suppose the jury, they've got to make their mind up.
Unanimous decisions on all of the charges, but they don't need to use the same reasons to come to their decisions. The group told the most important thing is they all agree. Tonight, the jury will spend their first night in their accommodation, supervised by 3 jury keepers and cut off from any media reports. They've been warned not to gather in small groups to discuss the case. Their highly anticipated verdict expected to make news around the world. Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
Okay, so Tita, this trial has been going for 10 weeks now. We're now into the 10th week. We started off with the prosecution opening their case, all those witnesses, and then the defence witnesses coming forward, both sides then summing up, and then the judge has been summing up for a few days. That went from last week into this week. What were his instructions to the jury?
Yes, so he's taken them through the different types of evidence that they will be able to use when assessing whether or not they will find Patterson guilty or not guilty. That included good character evidence. Throughout the trial, we heard from some members of the Patterson family and also some of her Facebook friends who spoke about her character and what she was like. I think she spoke about how she was a good mother and a devoted daughter-in-law. And the judges said that they can assess whether or not she had a motive to commit these crimes when they're using that during their deliberations, even though a motive is not one of the elements that does need to be fulfilled. He's also talked about the lies that she has told and her credibility and how they can use that. He said that if they found that she has lied, they can use that to assess whether other things that she has said are truthful or not. But he has cautioned them that if they do find that she has lied on something, that doesn't mean that she's lied about everything or that she is guilty, and they do still need to take a balanced approach when looking at all of the evidence that's been presented to them. Today we heard him go through again the elements of the murder and attempted murder charges. So she's been charged with three murder charges and 1 count of attempted murder. And for the murder charge, they will need to find her guilty with beyond a reasonable doubt of 4 of those elements. The first being whether or not she caused the deaths by serving up a poisonous meal. The judge has said they should find that easily that has been the case. The second element is whether she did so consciously, voluntarily and deliberately. And in this case, he said the big point will be whether or not she did so deliberately, as consciousness refers to whether or not she was in a conscious state or not, compared to someone who might be a sleepwalker, and whether or not she did so voluntarily can be if she's of sound of mind. So the focus really is on that part of the deliberate action. And the third is whether or not she intended to kill by serving the meal, and the fourth is whether or not she did so with a lawful excuse. So they'll be really focusing on the intention and the deliberate parts of those 4 elements.
There is so much for this jury to think about. Cassie, just before we let you both go.
Yeah, when you look at it that way and listen to all that, you think, God, they could be deliberating right into next week. They've got an awful lot to talk about, an awful lot to think about, because it is a momentous decision one way or another, isn't it?
You've been down in Leongatha today, outside Erin Patterson's house. What have you seen?
Well, Hugh, we received a tip-off late today that tarps have actually been put up outside her home in Leongatha, and that's the home where the fatal lunch occurred almost 2 years ago now. We were told that supporters of Erin Patterson were there over the weekend putting these tarps up, so you can see that it covers the front door, the access of the walkway to the front door, an area of the carport as well. There's only a small gap where a car can essentially drive in and out and park, but the tarp essentially covers the entire property, which is incredibly interesting. That neighbour told us that.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, is she expecting to walk free? You know, is that why that's been put up? Because she's expecting to walk free so nobody can take a video footage of her or whatever? You know, has she not heard of drones? I mean, they'll be flying drones over there, that's for sure. Or is it just to hide maybe something somebody said about maybe the furniture is going to be taken away or this, that or the other? I mean, you know, who knows? But maybe it's for the next time she has a nice beef Wellington lunch out there on the patio so that people can't take photos. Who's her next guest, I wonder? I don't believe that this has been by supporters of Erin. I think this has been done by someone, Erin, or someone she knows, a defence team or whatever. They've paid someone to do this. Are we really supposed to be? I mean, what supporters has Erin got? I mean, those of you that are in that area or in Australia, you'll let me know. Has she got a lot of support or not?
He had been going for a walk on Sunday afternoon, just taking his dogs for a walk, and he noticed it, and he thought it was quite an interesting new development outside her home. And this development coming into week 10 of the trial, now that the jury has been sent out to begin their deliberations, it's just interesting to see where other thought process is at.
Yeah, I think we've seen that driveway and that covered walkway between the car and the front door so much over the last couple of years, as we've seen that walk that Erin Patterson took shortly after that meal back in 2023. It is a huge trial. The whole world is waiting on this jury's decision, and of course we're going to bring it to you live on 7 News the moment the jury returns back to the courtroom. Cassie Zervos, Tita Smith, good luck with covering this story. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, you.
Let's take a look at 5 other big stories we're following here. A gunman is believed to have deliberately...
Sorry, no offence, but we're not going to do that. So, yeah, interesting. I don't think we've seen this one yet. We'll look at one more quick video and then I'm going to finish for today. And thank you, Maria, for sending me the screenshot thing. We'll look at that next time. I expect we'll be on here for a little while longer yet, don't you think? A few more days to go in this trial.
Deliberation in the mushroom murder trial is expected to wrap up at any moment. Let's go live to Mike Amor and our chief crime reporter, Cassie Zervos in Warwell. Mike and Cassie, still no word from the court?
No, Karina, the wait continues. We're expecting the jury to retire within the next 30 minutes. Cassie, given the severity of these charges, no surprise that it's taking this long.
Absolutely.
So this was earlier today, half an hour before they were due to finish.
Absolutely, Mike. We've just gone after 4 o'clock this afternoon and we're yet to hear back from the Supreme Court. We've got about 30 minutes or so, but it is very unlikely that the jury will hand down its verdict today, given they only started deliberating on Monday afternoon. So they've only had really 2 full days. And we have to keep in mind this trial started at the end of April. We are now at the start of July. There's 53 witnesses who took the stand, including nurses, doctors, police officers, Erin Patterson herself, her estranged husband, Simon, and the sole survivor, Ian Wilkinson. So there is so much evidence and exhibits to go through. And this is a decision that they won't want to rush. 12 strangers essentially have Erin Patterson's fate in their hands.
Yeah, it's a big decision, perhaps the biggest decision of their lives. And these are ordinary people. We don't know anything about them, rightfully, but there's a lot of pressure on them.
A lot of pressure, Mike. And as we just mentioned, probably one of the biggest decisions that they will make in their lifetime. A lot of these people are mums and dads. School holiday starts on Friday afternoon. We understand that for the first 6 days, they were making about $40 a day, and now they've been making about $80 a day. It is a huge sacrifice. Right now, they are away from their families. They've been put up in a hotel nearby. They have to transport to and from the courtroom each day via a bus. They're not allowed to talk to anyone from the outside world except one another. So it is a lot of pressure on them and a decision that they won't want to make very lightly as well.
And you can probably hear it above us. The rain has been coming down all day, Karina. So, Cassie, it's been a challenge for everybody.
Oh, that lovely rain, lovely rain. I wish it was raining here, I really do.
Involved in this case.
Absolutely. I'm sure you can see behind us there's tents set up for all the media. We've been ready to go from about 9 o'clock this morning just in case, because we aren't going to be given much of a warning. Our court reporter Estelle Greeping has been sitting in courtroom for all day just in case that buzzer is hit and the jury comes back, because we do know it is hot property in there. It's first in best dressed. So we want to make sure that we get a seat in that courtroom for when the moment happens. And of course, we will bring it live when it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Karina, we're expecting the jury to retire within the next 30 minutes, and we'll tell you when that happens, Karina.
Okay, the best team on the ground in Cassie and Mike. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but no verdict was returned. So we'll be back again tomorrow to talk about all this. And I'll tell you, when the verdict is reached, whatever the verdict is, it'll be chaos, won't it? There'll be all sorts coming out about Erin, about this, about that. And I agree. You know, Erin won't be able to live in that house because her address is known. But you wouldn't want to live in it anyway, would you? I wouldn't want to live in it, just for the reason that 4 people were poisoned there and 3 people died as a result of it. You know, someone like Erin, you'd want to get that sold as soon as possible, get a new house, try and start I mean, the thing is, Erin is so well known now. Where's she going to go? She'd have to go to a big city, really, because if she goes to another small community like that, everyone will know who she is, won't they? You know, and maybe I should feel sorry for her, but I actually don't, because I think she did this on purpose. But anyway. Okay. In Hampshire, it's 16 degrees and drizzling. Oh, I'd love a bit of drizzle. Would love a little bit of drizzle. Yeah, let's hope the right verdict, as you say, David, is reached for the sake of these victims. Yeah. Oh, you've got a chihuahua as your profile picture, I've just noticed. Oh, let's put some, see if I can. We've got a chihuahua emoji, haven't we, for the members? Anyway, yeah, so as always, our prayers go for the victims. Up in the right hand corner there, light our virtual candle for them, for Don, Gail and Heather, and of course for Ian, who, you know, has gone through all that trauma and he's got to sit through the trauma of this trial. So thank you again to Annie for the Ko-fi, and thank you again to Joanne for the super sticker. Thank you to all of you for supporting this channel by watching, by chatting, by liking, subscribing. Don't forget to subscribe. And most important, press your notification bell for all notifications, because I think this notification of when the golden buzzer rings, it's going to happen in the middle of the night, isn't it? Well, depending on where you are. I mean, if you're in Australia, it won't be the middle of the night. But for those of us that are in Europe, in Spain or Britain, this is going to happen in the middle of the night. So make sure you keep one eye open, and make sure you've got your notifications on. And hopefully this buzzer will come sooner rather than later. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your God go with you. Thank you.